Being in school is a great experience of learning all things that would lead you to be as independent individual one day. I'm currently myself in college. I'm 22 years old and my name is Joanna. I actually love college. And even though this not probably is not as relevant information, but I'm actually studying to be as a teacher one day. And during this, when I entered this program to be as a teacher one day, it brought up good memories of my elementary to middle school and even high school memories. But then it came to me when I remember one event in high school that was the most terrible one I ever had. I was around 16 when I was in this particular year, and this lasted for exact 1 year. And before then, it was a great time. And even after this particular event, well, I was how to say scared for quite some time. And you may learn the reason why. Like I said, I was 16 when this happened. I had just started my new semester at the school. And since I started the high school at 15, I had already made a great friends at this new high school. I mean, many friends. And many of them are actually still friends to this very day. But even though the teachers, all of them, was great, well, except for one, Mr. Johnson. He was a man in his 40s. I don't exactly remember his exact age, but that was in his 40s, and he was the math teacher. He had been a teacher for this school most a long time actually, and he was respectful among other teachers. He always had a great deal of learning. There were a lot of other students who didn't like him because he was very strict in his teachings. But this is not about him being strict to me during classes, though. Oh no. It was not something much worse than that. Mr. Johnson was a single man, and he always was fair and square. And I have to say that as much. I mean, he was always justice about for his tests and always gave us the right answer we was needed. He never yelled at us if we were giving wrong answers or anything. He just tried to study it for again. But during my second year of high school when I was 16, well, let's say I was had started getting my puberty had started to kicking in much more than usual. I was still a bit skinny, a little bit on curves and all that. But anyways, he started to take notice at me at most. Sometimes when he asked me to stay behind, since he only asked me if I could help him with some things before I leave. And I always did. But eventually, something did happen. Even though this is not the part involved in school itself, but after having been in school for almost 3 months, I was in a terrible accident. I literally broke my right arm, and I was right-handed, so I had to skip school for several weeks until my arm was healed. And during this time, well, I had a great time though. I just could be at home, watch some TV or something like that, but it's it sucked, since I love to be in school, like many others who don't want to be in school. But when I came back to school, Mr. Johnson was actually surprised and told me that he missed my presence at the school and during his classes, since I was one of his best students. And I'm actually still one of those best in my way though. But since I had missed out so much school, my grades haven't even been affected to the fact my I was had a broken arm, which the principal all that was actually appreciated and understood. And I had a lot of things to catch up with. And it took me maybe just 2 weeks or so to again manage to catch up with the other students. And I'm a fast learner and very dedicated to school. But it's not about that. Because, but then he, Miss Johnson actually told me that I needed some extra help with my my math. Turned out ever since I went back to school, I had a lot of for during some time I went through depression since my grandmother had passed away. My paternal grandmother, if I have to mention that. And she and I was very close. Losing her was losing a part of my soul, and I didn't focus much anymore on the school subjects like math, English, or anything like it. And my parents noticed that how I was depressed, and even Mr. Johnson had noticed how my performance of math was not as this my average. I was one of the top students in the class, but after almost a while, I almost skipped math, and my grades went down from an A to almost a D, and and well, Miss Johnson was getting a little bit frustrated. I wasn't paying much attention in his classes, but he was informed the reason why, and he understood. And even though today I don't think he actually felt sympathy about that, but he's just pretended. But anyways, Miss Johnson was, how to say, he was very dedicated to his work, without a doubt. But he told me if I don't have to this, if I don't get any much better grades on my next exam, I may repeat the class, had to repeat the same year over, and that was one thing I didn't want to. I wanted to finish high school with along my friends. Then in the fair, I had to repeat one whole year. So Miss Johnson had called in both my parents for a meeting with me and told them about my grades that been plunging down almost to the rock bottom. In a final way to say it much. My parents was not even aware that my grades had been so bad. They looked at me and asked why. When I told them that I had been depressed after my grandmother passed away, they felt sorry about that, and they understood because they had noticed that I haven't been myself lately. And Jonathan Soul told them that he could teach me after school as another way to increase my grades again, to raise them again. And since Miss Johnson was a well-respected teacher, and since he was the math teacher, and he was willing to give me tutoring after class in the school library or in a classroom. Both my parents actually accepted the offer since they wanted my grades to be up again, because opportunity to go to college or university after high school. And even though at first I didn't want to do that, I told them like, no, can we skip math entirely? I can just skip math and focus on other classes. But math was one important subject in life, my parents told me. And I actually don't, even today, I don't argue with that logic. Because if I never had continued math at all, I wouldn't even have been at a college right now, and my dreams to be a teacher would have been, well, crumbled, if in a bad way to say it, but it's just how my life would have been otherwise. I would have not even I wouldn't even found a job at all. So I accepted the offer. So we made a plan that he will be teaching me for next 5 weeks after school in a classroom from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. when my dad or my mom would pick me up. So I told my friends about this, and they were surprised that I actually had seen such bad grades. But they were all aware of my depression of my grandmother. So they sympathized about that, but they told me that if they want me to stay, if they want to stay behind so that they could just perhaps walk with me home or something. But I told them it's fine. So for the next couple of weeks, I actually went to Miss Johnson's classroom after school was over, and since I had given permission from the principal, since he had also been informed about this, and so for the first few weeks, like those two first weeks, he was actually just trying to get me to understand some of the basic understanding of this equations and other math formulas that we have been teaching, or that he had been teaching for the past few weeks, which I have been lacking off and never much paying attention to it. First, it was a bit hard to even get understanding about it, but eventually I did get a basic understanding of those, and then we went to the next step of the math. And for the first times, he actually sat by his desk and just either reading a book when I was doing math, and I asked him if he could maybe help me with some of this or look at things. And when he did that, I always felt safe. And after that, when I was finished, I went up to his desk and he looked through my paper, the homework, or the subject that he gave me, and he often actually said, "Well, you see how much you can, if you focus as much as this could actually work." I smiled and thanked him, and he actually gave me an A or a B plus for most of my gradings. But since it was going to be 5 weeks, the 2 first weeks were normal. But the 3 remaining weeks started acting a little bit strange. Sometimes, at first, I didn't know to pay much attention to it, but now I realized this was part of his plan, actually. He stood behind me when I was doing my math class, my subject in math or something like that, and he was just standing there, look over my shoulder, said, "Looking good. Keep up with this." Then he either had his hand on my shoulder, just had it there, and said, "Good job. You see, you can do it." And that I didn't see anything wrong with. It's just he just patted my shoulder and said, "Good job." But then he started rubbing, like massaging my back, and said, "Perhaps this can help you relax a little bit. Maybe your performance a bit better." I started to feel a bit uncomfortable, but I never actually tried to stay away from him or telling anyone. I thought, since if I could actually repeat this, if I can focus on this and put that other things that behind me, and since it's just 3 more weeks, if I can handle this, it will be fine. That will be over soon. But during the last week of this 5 week plan, he started acting a little bit more flirtatious, almost to me. I was like, or at least try to seduce me or something. I don't even know what he even tried, to be honest. But during the last day, since I have been such good working in this, he actually said, "Why not that we go out, just you and I go to a restaurant to celebrate how your grades have been increased?" But I declined the offer and said I appreciate it, but I also told him that it would not be appropriate since I'm a student and he's my teacher. And the principal wouldn't even appreciate it. And he somehow told them that it's fine. We can just go there, just grab just go to McDonald's, just grab something to eat and just celebrate. Still again, I declined and said that he's my teacher and it was not appropriate. He started to get a little bit mad, but he could keep cool. And he once asked once again, while he's standing behind my back and rubbing it or massaging, it's like, "Come on, dude, don't be nice. Or we can go to my place and take a drink some wine." "Miss Johnson, I'm 16. I don't drink wine, and that's not right to appropriate." He said, "Come on. You're looking as older enough. You look mature enough. And if you try to do anything, I can always drive you home afterwards." I was speechless. But I stood up and walked to the door and said, Miss Johnson, this is not appropriate for you to behave around a student. But he said, calmly, like with almost a chuckle, if you didn't even try to tell anyone of this, no one even believe you. I have been feeling uncomfortable around you. You have been trying to seduce me for weeks. Don't deny it. As if they won't even no one believe you. And he was right. He was a well respectable other teachers, including the principal. And without any proof, there would be my words against his and his reputation. So I decided, well, um, thanks for the teaching though, and I left. And turned out that wasn't the last day. There was at least 2 more days of this. And the next day during school, I actually walked into another teacher, Miss Angela. She was in her early 30s. She was an English teacher and to this very day, my absolute favorite teacher. She noticed something was wrong on my face, like I was not happy. I told her that's nothing wrong, but she could sense that something was wrong. She told me that I could tell her anything. Anything at all. At first I was hesitating, but then I broke down crying, told her everything from what Miss Johnson had been doing. Her smile turned to almost a frightened look. And when I told her that despite if I told anyone, either a teacher or a principal, no one would even believe me. Then she said, well, how about this? Since normally we weren't allowed to have our phones with us, but she said, you can have your phone in your pocket, in your chest pocket, and pretend it is off, and have it recorded when he's doing his private classes, he said. Good plan, I thought. And I did that. So before I went in class, I put my phone in my pocket and put it on, turn it off. And during class, first he acted like normal. But then he stayed behind my back and once again tried to ask me if he could just go out and celebrate and maybe go back to his place to have some wine and maybe watch some movie, just cuddling like that. I told him once again firmly, that is wrong, Miss Johnson. I will never do that. And he said, you will do what I tell you. You are my student and you will obey me. That is what the students' roles are doing here. And after that, I was like, no. And I just walked out before he can do anything else. He even tried to stop me by grabbing my arm. He said, you don't tell anyone, or I will ruin your life. But I ran away from the classroom, and luckily for me, Miss Angela was still at the school. I ran to her office or her classroom and showed her the phone and recordings. She was horrified. She told me that we should go straight to the principal right away, since he was still in his office at the time. So we went straight to the office. We told the principal first what he has been doing for the past few weeks, but he didn't even believe me. But when I said, I have proof, showed him my phone, and he listened to every single word. At first he was skeptical about this, but then, hearing the Miss Johnson's tone, how he acted was serious. The principal didn't even believe at first, but then he did. He told me that I could go home and that he will take care of this. And the next day, which was a Friday, I was informed by Miss Angela just before class started that Miss Johnson had been fired and arrested for trying seducing a student or trying to have his way with them. And he also lost his teaching license. I was horrified, or at least relieved, because this was something I wanted him to do. But it didn't end up that. By the end of the day, turned out I was not the only one. He had been doing this to multiple different girls for an entire year, and even beginning of their freshman year, even after seniors. He had apparently been doing this for years. After all, when this new attention came out, when he was told this new information, he confessed everything. Turned out he'd been doing this ever since he started at this high school, and that a number of years. So that means a number of school students had been his victims, and I was his last one. And I was horrified. Not even imagine what other those girls could have been experienced or went through. Luckily for me and the others at the school at the time, they had never been able to be in such any serious, at least serious like I did. But some of them were, well, if we have to mean it as a friendly term, he had actually even possessed the death threats to those particular students. If they told anyone, he will find them, killing them, and bury their bodies somewhere in the deep woods that no one would find them. And he would never be any suspect. But had he actually done that, I don't know. But I honestly don't believe that he would even go it's that far. But he was arrested and was in jail for, I think it was for about 10 years or so. And I'm so glad that Miss Angela believed me. If she had even believed my story, or even had suggested that idea, he may have still been teaching to even this day, or even been retired, I don't know. But thanks to Miss Angela, she is my favorite teacher ever since then, and even before all this. And she is also the other main reason I wanted to be a teacher. And I am actually happy that I can also say, despite having some trauma after this, I was traumatized. Miss Angela and the principal had arranged that I had been a counselor at the school to talk about this, and it actually helped. And when I told Miss Angela, when I came back for vacation time for holiday break, when I ran into her that I was actually in the course of being a teacher training to be a teacher, she smiled and cried and said, "But I said, you inspired me the more reason to be a teacher. I want to be like you." She cried to give me a hug and said she knows that I would be a great teacher. And even a great mom one day when I will have to teach my kids the same things of what I went through. I thanked her, and of course, maybe this is not relevant, but I'm actually engaged with a guy, and he is actually a law student. And we are just happy, and he is aware of what my high school experience of that particular teacher. He supported me all the way. So, Vince Johnson, let us never ever meet again. Thank you for that.